Imagine a simple situation. Your project is on fire, deadlines, pressure, you open your door and you are choosing between two compressor plugins. The first one, it's futuristic, modern, beautiful, and you're just a little bit unsure what's happening here and there. The second one, classic, simple, threshold, ratio, attack, release, view matters. You don't even think. You choose what you already know. Let's start with hard but honest truth. Money decides everything. If a product looks familiar, it doesn't need to be explained. Even without deep marketing research, many company owners, product managers feel this intuitively and use it. No learning required. The product maker doesn't need to record tutorials explaining how to use a compressor, an equalizer, or where is the volume knob. That means lower costs for training materials, less technical support, fewer questions from users, and fewer things marketing needs to explain. And here is the important part. Building an audio product is already expensive. R&D, DSP, UI UX, testing, marketing. So a familiar interface saves money on almost everything that happens after the release. What about before the release? Let me share you a story. We once had a very specific UI task. We were designing an organ library, but with a blue neon vibe and minimal ambient light. It looked unique, modern, and visually striking. The controls were still knobs and faders, but heavily stylized. And it got a backlash. Very quickly, the developer redesigned it into classic look. Wood textures, warm colors, familiar proportions. The product recovered, but the momentum was already lost. So yes, innovation and uniqueness matter, but how much of it matters even more. Neuroscience shows that under stress, up to 3/4 of people default to familiar tools. Not because they hate innovation, no, but because the brain prioritizes predictability and control. If a workflow doesn't intentionally include risk and experimentation, new plugins simply won't make it into real projects. I remember another case. We were redesigning a product layout. Essentially a continuation of an existing product line, but for a different hardware device. We tried to improve what every reasonable designer would do: readability, spacing, contrast. We failed. Why? Because the product owner was already used to the old design, and the users weren't complaining. Even though the logic was weak, the fonts were small, the contrast was poor. This is exactly the reason why designers often dislike redesigning someone else's work, or touching existing logos, products, you name it. It's not about ego. It's not just ego. It's fear of new. And fear of new often outweighs the reason redesign happened in the first place. Most products don't change the visual language for decades, and nostalgia in particular operates on 20-25-year circle. What's interesting is that the brain adapts surprisingly fast. In about 18 to 30 exposures, something starts to feel familiar. And once that happens, even objectively better ideas can fail, simply because they feel too new. If a product looks unfamiliar, the brain automatically marks it as risky, especially in audio, because here the stakes are real. Deadlines, clients, money, responsibility, you name it. Imagine a new plugin, a new MIDI controller, and each one says, "We reinvented the workflow." For the user, well, that often sounds like you'll have to put in extra effort and learn this again. Most people aren't lazy. They're just constantly tired. A familiar interface, on the other hand, says, "Relax, you already know this, you've done this before, you'll be fine. That's why innovation works best in small doses. 10 to 20% of something new, okay. More than 50, well, most people would drop off. Maybe that's the reason why FL Studio only started generating serious revenue once its users grew into professionals. Even a slightly unconventional approach to workflow pushed away adult professional users early on. That's why successful products are almost always something familiar plus a bit of something new. Not everything completely reinvented. Nostalgic products tap into pleasant memories. First impressions, favorite tracks, good times. But the most important question for manufacturer is, who is gonna buy this? Nostalgia is usually aimed at adults, people aged 30 to 50, people who already work and earn money. Innovative products, on the other hand, are often aimed at students, teenagers, or even children. Notable coffee example in Japan. They can have bold, complex, exciting concepts, but they usually sell worse. Nostalgia sells immediately because it says, I know this, I want this, I feel this. People like what they've already seen before. That's not an option, it's a fact. And this effect was described in detail by Robert Zions. Familiar things feel better and more beautiful to us even when objectively they aren't. That's why familiar knobs feel right, old interfaces feel professional, and brand new innovative designs often feel at least strange and sometimes simply bad. In business, this has been understood and used continuously for a long time. Nostalgia often sells better than innovation because it's cheaper to explain, psychologically safer, it doesn't require learning, well, it targets the paying audience, and it's objectively more pleasant for the brain. This doesn't mean innovation is unnecessary. It means that pure innovation without a familiar anchors almost always fails. The most successful products combine the familiar with something new. Progress paired with comfort. And if you work with audio design, ignoring this rule can be very expensive. So until the next time.